Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Oh, happy Monday to you and yours. We made it through the weekend. We're here, back at work, back ready to provoke some more provocative thoughts and conversations. We have an awesome show planned for you today. The whole Fearless Army is basically here today. Royce White, Shemeka Michelle, TJ Moe, Dave Shannon are all going to drop by today and help me discuss Pride Month. Yeah, we're in the middle of Pride Month, and it was popping this weekend. And so we're going to delve into it. You know, last week we went in depth on what is a woman. This topic is, connected to the whole what is a woman deal. And so without further ado, let's go straight to our fire starter. Let's get this party popping. So let me let it rip. All right. The in-your-face sexual depravity showcase at the LGBTQ plus Pride celebrations acts as a mirror for the rest of us. It's a reflection of the culture Christian heterosexuals built, tolerated, and or enjoyed the last 60 years. We allowed the centering of our sexuality in all aspects of American television, music, cinema, art, and culture. We sold hamburgers, magazines, cars, football, and everything else with sex. We giggled when Carl's Jr. decorated cheeseburgers with scantily clad supermodels. We dined at Hooters. We danced to Too Short's Freaky Tales, Naughty by Nature's OPP, and Two Lives Cruise. We want some. We love Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, the Cowboys cheerleaders, and Charlie's Angels. What do we always say? Sex sells. So it's disingenuous and naive to be shocked that, given the opportunity and leverage, the gay movement is selling its lifestyle with sex. They're simply mirroring the behavior of the formerly dominant culture. We made Pride Month and all the debauchery and grooming that comes with it inevitable. Like all problems, the solutions start with the Christian man or woman in the mirror. I had this epiphany this weekend while perusing Twitter and drinking in the disgusted tweets featuring videos of child-friendly debauchery at pride parades. Conservatives are growing brands and social media platforms highlighting drag queen story hours, LGBTQ teachers, grooming children, and the nonsensical ramblings of the identity confused. I'm going to show you 3 different videos that kind of demonstrate, what I'm talking about, these social media platforms that are showcasing this stuff and building a following by showcasing what the LGBT movement are doing. I believe the first one is a group at a pride parade in Washington, D.C., and all these videos, these 3 are all from the Pride Parade in DC, where a reporter is interviewing people about their identity and what they identify as.
I'm gay. Yeah.
What age did you know that you were gay?
I think at 10 I knew that I think at 10, but I wasn't clear on my gender.
Yeah, I think it was around 10 as well when I started questioning if I was bi, and then since then it was kind of like a slippery slope because I was like, am I bi, omni, lesbian, and then I kind of came to the point, and then now recently I've been am I pan, but then I think now I'm starting to realize that I'm queer. But yeah, it started around 10. It wasn't fully formed, but I guess that's when I realized, wait, that's a possibility. Yeah, I am genderqueer, transmasc, and queer.
What's transmasc?
Transmasc is people under the non-binary umbrella identifying or presenting masc.
Masculine?
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm trans and my sexuality is unlabeled. I use he, him pronouns.
Yeah, and I use he, they pronouns.
Tell us what you guys identify as. We're asking everyone here today.
Gay. Gay, cis, what is it? Cisgender male. There we go.
I don't know. Gender neutral or gender fluid. I think that's what they said. I don't know. I'm confused.
So you identify as gender fluid?
I don't know.
Pronouns.
She, her, it. I feel like honestly, it should not be a bad thing. Like I've talked to people who go with they and them. And I'm like, well, in the grammar of things, how would you want to represent yourself? I was like, I guess it, because it's like you're it. You're the it. Like it shouldn't be a bad name. It should just be owned.
Gay. Yes. Yes, I love.
She identify as he, she, her,
She.
Pronouns are he, him, sometimes use they. I don't give a shit.
I guess you could call me gay. I'm homo-flexible, really. I do like some women, but mostly men.
I'm gonna show you more because I want us to fully understand what we have wrought with our own behavior. And so I think this next video is adults explaining why kids need to be at these pride parades.
I noticed there's a lot of kids in attendance here this year. Are there always this many kids? And also, do you think it's a good thing?
Absolutely, and it is a great thing because I feel like making sure that children are aware of what is around them is important, you know? Just because you are around certain things doesn't mean that you're going to be persuaded to be a part of things, but you should be aware of the other type of people that live around you. And if you're not capable, you know, it's a developmental problem, and this is how we fix that problem.
And for some of the kids who maybe saw some nudity here, maybe saw some twerking, what do you think about that?
Sometimes when you grow up, you see some nudity. Do you understand that? It helps you to understand who you are. Sometimes you're gonna see some twerking.
I absolutely love it. I work at a Montessori daycare, and we are very open sexuality based with our children. We have several children that are non-binary, very queer, and it's just a beautiful community, so I love to see it here as well.
They get the chance to see such a diverse culture. They get the chance to be open to whatever their body or their mind is telling themselves. They get to learn that at such a young age, and I love that for them.
A lot of people that are claim to not be homophobic say that they shouldn't get their kids involved. They shouldn't get kids involved with this type of stuff. But I think that it should be, in adding little kids to it, it kind of helps normalize pride.
I am so excited for our future because I know that it's going to be way more open and accepting, and I'm really happy that I see children here all the time.
I think they need to be showed from when they're young to be accepting of stuff, so.
I think it's a good thing. Honestly, I feel like your kids should understand that it is actually okay to be who you want to be at your age. And it gives you that time through puberty to understand if you're not that person.
I don't really have an opinion either way. Kids need to know these identities exist, and I haven't seen anything I'd say that's outrageously inappropriate today.
Because at the end of that second one, we saw the third one, so I'm not going to show the third video because there was a separate video just showing what the guy was doing at the end, and that there were kids, coming in right behind that naked guy with the breast or whatever that was twerking on the police officer and ran the police officer off. This weekend I asked myself, why are gay people behaving this way? Why does it seem like their life mission is to shove their sexuality down all of our throats? The answer struck me while I was watching the movie Killer Joe, a 2012 drama featuring Matthew McConaughey and Juno Temple. For the past month, Amazon Prime has been recommending the movie to me based on my viewing history. McConaughey plays the role of a Dallas cop who moonlights as a hitman for hire. He's contracted by a drug dealer who wants his mother killed. The drug dealer offers Killer Joe his virginal little sister, Juno Temple, as the down payment on the murder. This movie was filmed in 2010 when Juno Temple was 20 and Matthew McConaughey was 40. In the movie, Temple looks 15 or 16. 42 minutes into the movie, I stopped the movie as Temple stripped naked for McConaughey. I was uncomfortable. The movie was soft porn, a darker, more sexually explicit version of Kevin Spacey's American Beauty. Amazon recommended Killer Joe to me based on what I have previously watched. This says something about my taste in cinema and television. So I reviewed what I watched. I like dark crime dramas. The movies I watch the most are The Godfathers, Scarface, JFK. The TV shows I watch the most are The Sopranos, The Wire, The Shield, Game of Thrones, and Billions. I like crime, corruption, and sex. Amazon recommended that I watch crime, corruption, and sex. It fed me what I like. It's criminal, or it should be, that adults are taking kids to drag shows. It's corrupt that teachers see it as their responsibility to teach kids about gender and sexuality. It's sad that we've created a society that justifies criminality and corruption with sex. The LGBTQ crowd is mirroring an extreme version of the dominant culture's behavior. They're not doing anything we haven't done. Late last week, the delivery service Postmates released a Pride commercial with a food menu that is bottom friendly, meaning the food options are sodomy friendly. Postmates tweeted this with the commercial: "You shouldn't miss a good meal for a good time. That's why this Pride we've teamed up with Dr. Evan Goldstein and Rob Anderson to create the world's first bottom-friendly menu." Yep, it's real. Eat with pride. I can't adequately describe the commercial. You have to watch it for yourself. So let's watch the Postmates commercial.
What are you eating this Pride? Well, if you're a top, it seems like you can eat whatever you want. But if you're a bottom, you're expected to starve? Not this Pride. Introducing the bottom-friendly menu from Postmates. We teamed up with Dr. Evan Goldstein from Bespoke Surgical to bring you a menu of bottom-friendly foods backed by science. Insoluble fiber won't help you feel cute, so avoid things like whole grains, wheat bran, cauliflower, potatoes, legumes. Hold up, are you just fully diving into those beans? The problem with these foods is they don't dissolve in water, which could cause a traffic jam in your digestive system, making a mess of your evening. Speaking of messy, it's a good idea to avoid dairy.
I cannot handle lactose right now. Look at her.
If you're going to eat something insoluble, give your body about 24 hours to process all of it. Soluble fibers and protein are the key to having some good, clean fun. These all digest easily and slowly while feeding your good gut bacteria, which makes sushi a great bottom-friendly option. There's no right or wrong way to bottom, but if you're planning on getting peachy this Pride, the bottom-friendly menu on Postmates has the kinds of foods that could keep you feeling good.
Are you organic?
I get it. I understand why you're repulsed watching the commercial. I certainly was when I originally saw it. But we have mainstreamed immorality. Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre headlined the Super Bowl halftime show. Snoop is a confessed pimp. Snoop, Dre, and Eminem specialize in making lyrical pornography. Their music targets kids. No one should be surprised that Lil Nas X and Cardi B are the next iteration of Snoop and Dre. Gay Pride is the next iteration of Playboy magazine. Let me make one more analogy. Gay Pride is January 6th. All of America watched the 2020 St. George Floyd riots. We watch cities burned, stores looted, and cops killed while corporate media justified the chaos and mayhem. A counter-protest was inevitable. For decades, popular culture and corporate media have celebrated heterosexual depravity. A counter-protest was inevitable. We're the George Floyd riots. Gay pride is MAGA. Make America gay again. That's my fire. This is on us. I had to deal with that this weekend. A buddy of mine, one of my friends from college, on our text thread, sent me out some meme that basically said, here I am minding my business, and here's the LGBT movement with this tuba blaring in my face with their agenda. And it made me giggle and laugh. But I believe what the gay movement is saying is that they've had a tuba in their face their entire life, putting our sexuality, jamming it down their throat. And I had to acknowledge that's true. When I think about all the shows that I watch, and now that I'm an old man and become an old fuddy-duddy or whatever, and like, hey man, this heterosexuality and all these sex scenes and needless sex scenes in movies and in commercials and all that stuff, it's not healthy. It's not productive. It's going to lead to the kind of backlash we're dealing with today. And this is why I keep talking about, if we take our identity in Christ and in being Americans and leave some of this other stuff on the back burner, we've made sexuality way too much a part of our identity, way too much a part of the culture. And again, I'm not some prude. I just believe in private life, personal life, and public life. Private life, personal life, and public life. We've made all of our lives public, and we've been shoving our life and our beliefs and our sexual beliefs down other people's throats, and now they're shoving back. And much of this stuff we do is completely unnecessary. Again, when I'm watching The Sopranos, Tony Soprano, it can be implied that he bedded some stripper or some car salesman. We don't need to see all the intimate details of that, but that's what they shove down our face. And again, I'm sitting here as an old man, I guess as a fuddy-duddy, and I'm watching the movie Killer Joe, and I'm just like, hey man, they're trying to get me to fantasize about some 40-year-old man banging a high school student. And I just cut the TV off. It's like, this is crazy. But that's what the movie was doing. And that's what movies do. There's all these needless sex scenes. And so I guess I'm turning into my grandfather or my grandmother or just some old fuddy-duddy. But when I look at the ramifications of it, and I look at where the LGBT, what inspired them to do what they're doing, it's us. It's me. All right, we're going to start with Royce White. Royce, welcome back to the show. I see you went sleeveless today to talk with me, putting them guns on display, guns out, suns out. Royce, what do you think about my take that all this in-your-face LGBT stuff is actually a reflection on us and what they're just mirroring the behavior that we model?
I think it's a fair point. I think it speaks to a much bigger sentiment that I think people need to become comfortable with. Is in politics, we say you get the government you deserve. And people sort of get the culture that they deserve or that they earn. And what you're explaining is the pervasive or corrosive effect of a loss on faith on the greater society, and this is a loss of faith, and even the movement away from traditional sexual relationships or the using of sex as a means to commercialize other products is us trading our freedom and our freedom for security and materialism. And what it became is radical materialism. I will say that, in my opinion, the LGBTQ movement is a distinct movement that is more predicated in an anti-human worldview, and the sexual the provocative sexual commercial movement in America may not be of all of the moral clarity and standards that we would like, but the outcome of a man and woman having sex in whatever variety is still possibly a child. Much of the LGBTQ movement sentiment is a nihilist one that says children are not really the goal of sex at all and shouldn't be. And actually, for the women, having a child is a job of the patriarchy.
Break that down a little bit more for me, because I'm trying to understand. I think the LGBT crowd is basically saying, hey, look, we're grooming your children because we feel like you tried to groom us, and we reject that grooming. And so we're going to do the same thing and try to groom your children into our lifestyle.
Yeah, no, that's completely ridiculous in every sense. Look, the LGBTQ movement in its true manifestation is an anomaly. And if we're going to say, like I said a couple weeks back, if we're going to say that guns, video game culture, the radical violence in movies and so on and so forth is a predicate for there to be mass shooters, then we have to admit in an honest conversation that the sexualization or this LGBTQ version has caused or triggered more people to become confused. And that's what really a lot of the people in those video clips of the Pride Parade were saying. They weren't saying, I know what my sexuality is and I'm trying to promote or advocate for others to have a sexuality or a clarity of identity like I have. They're saying, I don't know, and I would like for a bunch of other kids in the coming generation not to know, which is a way to sow confusion. And really, I do believe that identity crisis and social confusion is a game that's being played by a much darker, malevolent force that is really about anti-humanism, right? And so the Abrahamic faith in our culture was an obvious improvement from a barbaric culture where we had earth worshiping and child sacrifice. And we've gone back to both. And the LGBTQ movement was a conduit back to a culture, a pagan culture of earth worshipers and child sacrificers. And we have that manifesting in abortion and this climate movement, but the social conduit for commercialization is this LGBTQ identity thing. And these people are most of them are confused. Now, if you're gay and lesbian, that's been around for since the beginning of time. But all this pansexual, sapiosexual, transmasking, all of that stuff is to sow confusion. It's a linguistic culture war, and I'm not buying it.
What do you say to my contention that the solution actually starts with us, those of us that are believers, those of us that espouse some sort of morality and want some sort of values and standards to drive the country, that we have to de-emphasize our public sexuality and model a more appropriate outlook and expression of sexuality if we're ever going to drive this LGBT thing back to a more responsible way of behaving. That I don't think we're going to be able to shame the group of people we showed you into that video into changing their behavior. We're just going to have to model the superiority of our beliefs and our values, and that will fix the culture.
I don't know. I don't have a first time I'm held renderless with an answer. In my opinion, I think that people should become more unabashed in their heterosexuality. That would be my approach. I'm certainly not going to play any kind of hide and go seek game with the fact that I'm a heterosexual male, due to the fact that uh, you know some manipulative group of people want to use sex politically in the sexual domain to push ill agenda. And I think to hide heterosexuality is to deny the possibility or the miracle of procreation in some ways. And should we become a little bit more traditional and conservative in the way it's depicted on the big screen? I would say that's certainly reasonable. Are we ever going to do that? Absolutely not. Because the avalanche towards cultural depravity is interlinked, and the radical materialism and loss of faith are interlinked. So I don't see the LGBTQ movement as being so far removed from the overall sexualization of culture, but I see that variation as having a distinct purpose, and it goes from having low sexual morality to having an anti-human sexual promiscuity worldview. And those are two distinctly different things. Look, in the Bible, it says God would rather you have sex with a prostitute before waste on a rock, right? But and kind of that sentiment that every child that's born, every time there's a conception of life, God had a direct hand in that miracle. And in the most depraved forms of sex, in most cases, between man and woman does have that possibility. And there's a sanctity of life there that exists in the conception, but also exists in the act between men and women. When you have two men, you have two women, you have a man who becomes a woman who wants to be with another. Those things get lost in the entire sexual premise.
Roy, I want to ask again, or for clarity, I'm saying, like, yeah, I do believe in being more pronounced in being heterosexual, but there is a way to do it responsibly and not in the debaucherous way that I think we have exposed heterosexuality and promoted heterosexuality. It's as much sex as you can possibly have, and if that creates a baby, so what? You're just a baby daddy and a baby mama. The proper expression of heterosexuality probably, in my view, comes from marrying a woman, producing child, and organizing and developing that family.
But there's two ways you can look at it, Jason, because in my view, the whole no sex before marriage deal was a way where the conservative side of the political aisle seeded the ground for an anti-human sentiment. Because their approach to it was, if you had sex before marriage and a child came out of it, then we look down on that child. So they precluded the miracle that comes with the conception of life based on a social proclivity. And that was actually the gateway to say, well, if you're gonna make a moral claim around how you want children to be born, well, how about no children at all? Or how about we kill children in the womb? Because, well, what's the difference? And they did that in the 70s. I mean, this whole abortion phenomenon is 50 years old. I mean, it's 1973. That's my grandmother, right? So, there are multiple ways in which Satan uses all of the things that we deal with in life to try and undermine the sanctity of life and faith in God. And he's very skilled, talented, manipulative, deceptive. He has all of the spiritual metaphysical powers that make these conversations and the nuance of them very important. And my safeguard against that is to say, if a man and woman lay down and have a sexual act, whether it be a robber and a prostitute or two professionally employed man and woman with stability or whatnot, if the possibility of a child is there, the sanctity of life has been protected. The premium on life has been protected. And the reason I push back on this is because this is the argument that they use in third world countries for mass abortion. This is Bill Gates. He's saying, oh, the population isn't a problem. Population growth isn't an issue. It's just the countries that can't handle it. Why? Because the African nations over there in third world, villages, they don't have the money. They don't have the resources. They don't have the proper planning or medical care. They can't protect the environment and the climate with more children. So we have to really safeguard against the anti-human sentiment first, and the moral order or standard of the ideal sexual domain second.
Royce, I'm going to, if possible, if you're available, I'm going to invite you back on Wednesday so you can engage with me and Bobby and Anthony on this topic. You've raised some excellent points, and that right now I need some time to marinate and think. And I want to engage you in a deeper conversation. A great job. That's why I love having you on. You make me think. We're going to keep it moving. Let me take care of some business. Talk to you about my good friends at Good Ranchers. It's getting hot outside, and that's not just from the grills firing up. Summer is upon us, and if you're looking for the perfect cuts of meat to cook this year, look no further. Good Ranchers is the place to get American beef, chicken, and seafood this summer. They sell 100% meat and ship it right to your door. And right now they're giving away 2 free 18-ounce prime center cut ribeyes to every person that uses my code FEARLESS. That's over 2 pounds of prime ribeye steaks just added to your order at no cost. With Father's Day coming up and the summer stretching out before us, what's not to love? This is not the time to wait. Claim your ribeyes today before they run out. This is a limited stock item, first come, first serve, and you want to be first when it comes to Good Ranchers. They deliver the best of American farms and ranchers to your door. Make sure you take time today, right now, be a good, fearless soldier. Feed your fearless army. Good Ranchers. Go to goodranchers.com/fearless or use my code FEARLESS at checkout to get your 2 free 18-ounce ribeyes. Start the summer off right. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered. They support you, me, and our way of life. You need to be supporting Good Ranchers. You gotta eat. You love meat. Why not Good Ranchers? Why give it away to some company that doesn't believe in you and the way you want America to be? All right, Shemeka Michelle. Eric's. All right, welcome back. We're going to continue the conversation about Make America Gay Again and all the gay pride debauchery we've seen so far in the month of June. And we certainly saw this weekend with gay pride parades going all on across the country. Shemeka, welcome to the show. I want to know your reaction to my contention that what we're seeing from the LGBT crowd is a reflection of what they believe they've seen from us.
I definitely think that we have been, over the years, just coming out more and more with sexual depravity and even just lasciviousness on a whole. I was having a conversation with my friend over the weekend, and we were talking about how growing up, like Lucy and Desi didn't even sleep in the same bed. You know, we thought about Carol and Mike. We never saw them, simulating sex on the screen. We, I guess, could kind of have an idea of what they did because they were a married couple, but we never saw this. Fast forward to now, they do everything on the screen and they leave nothing to the imagination. So I do think that over the years, we have become more and more sexual and put a lot more information in front of people and children than we did when I was a little girl, for sure.
And so I can see that crowd saying, like, what are you upset about? Your kids got access to HBO and regular TV, and because, it doesn't, HBO or the Netflix or Amazon, the movies go a bit further than television, but TV goes far further than when I was growing up. And much of it, and again, I can't tell if it's just I'm become some old fuddy-duddy, but it's just like the whole time it's going on, when I'm at a movie or whatever, I'm just like, man, can y'all just move on? Okay, they had sex. This is some kind of fake simulated sex. I don't need to see it. It's an interesting plot point. Okay, they had sex, but I don't need to see someone simulate sex for me to get that point in a movie or a TV show.
Correct. And it used to be that it was just on HBO or Cinemax. But I remember a couple of years ago, I was sitting watching Empire, which I think was a Thursday night at 8 p.m. with my daughters. And there was it was clearly a gay scene. Someone walked in and there was a man on his knees in front of another man whose pants were open. And I was shocked, and I hopped on the internet, and my title of my video was "Get This Gay Shit Off TV." And I had to go a little further to say, take it all off, because even though this was a gay act, even if it had been a heterosexual couple, it was too much for prime time on what would have been, in my day, regular TV. This wasn't HBO or Cinemax, and I thought it was too far. We've gone way too far. Whether it's heterosexual or gay, we have put a lot more in front of children and people than we used to, for sure.
And I saw people making this point this weekend, because I'm telling you, I saw a lot of the gay pride stuff and I was repulsed. And then I just started thinking, like, well, hold on, man. There's a side to their story. There has to be. People aren't just crazy and just don't. And I just started thinking about it. And someone put out a meme on their, because, you know, Twitter's probably the gayest place on earth. And they put out a meme that, you know, you're repulsed by this, but then they showed like the NFL cheerleaders dancing and twerking and shit. And I had to, after reflection, after first laughing it off, I had to say, I see their point. We take our kids to sporting events, football, basketball, and there are cheerleaders, scantily clad, gyrating everywhere. They come out halftime or during timeouts during a basketball game and shake their rear. And so I have to say that they're saying, like, hey guys, you're very comfortable with young girls shaking their rear ends at sporting events for the delight and pleasure of you and your children. And so I can't have drag queens shake their rear ends in front of kids and because I saw some videos where parents were like forcing their kids to look at this, even though their kids were trying to turn away. And so, I mean, it's a bad look, but I gotta admit, I think we did this. Again, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And this is the reaction that we should have predicted was going to come.
It's the small fox that spoiled the vine, Jason, for sure. I don't know if it's the hypocrite in me that just won't say it's the exact same thing, but I do believe that we've been going towards that. When you think about just how you were talking about watching things, there was a time when my mother, if something was a bit too much, she would cover my eyes. So it's crazy to me that parents are actually dragging their kids into situations that their kids are even uncomfortable with and saying, look, you got to look at this, opposed to doing what our parents did for us, which was cover our eyes. But I do think that we have let down our guard over the years. We've allowed certain things to be okay. We, just haven't called certain things out, and we thought, okay, this is harmless. And now we see that maybe it really wasn't harmless, and we have pushed this and we have allowed it, and now this is where we are. I do want to say, though, that there are a lot of gay people that think what they've been seeing with these drag queen story hour and the pride parades, there are gay people that think it has gone too far as well. I actually had a gay man send me that Postmates as well, and his words in his text was, "This is why I can't do the F word." Like, he was so upset and thought it had gone way too far and that it was unnecessary, and putting it in front of children is too much. A lot of people who are gay were sexually abused as kids. And I have talked to a few men over the years who don't want to be gay, who were just exposed to being homosexual at such an early age when their body responded, which was just a biological response. It confused them. And so now they want to be married, they want to have children, but they've been gay for so long that they're really confused, and this is really having an effect on them. And I think about even myself. I had played with girls as a little girl. Thank God I never said, or my mother never said, this means you're actually a boy, or this means you're bisexual or pansexual or whatever, all of these names that we had now. It was just experimentation. And after about 9 or 10, I wasn't interested in it anymore. So I think that we are just not allowing kids to really develop. We're pushing things on them at such an early age. It's only creating confusion. And when I talk to adult people who have lived in this lifestyle, who are now suffering from this type of confusion, I have to say, we have to do better in what we put in front of our kids, what we guard them with, how adamant we are about them not being exposed to certain things, because when they get older, we're going to look back and say, I really believe, oh my God, what have we done? Whether it was expose them or not even standing up and speaking out against the things that we know could lead in that direction.
Look, I'm going to take the conversation here because I know you can handle it and we'll have something to say. But I've been telling people close to me for years, this is a theory I have about sex. And it's like someone will see some athletic, 6'2", 190-pound dude, and he'll be with a 270-pound woman. Mm-hmm. And I will say I tell people, I was like, that means his first sexual experience, likely as a child, was with an overweight older woman. He was sexually exploited. And your first sexual experience will define and or help shape your sexual attraction for the rest of your life. And so, and I'm gonna go ahead and be this transparent and say that I've got friends that say, man, Jason, you tend to favor white women. And you can go all the way back to my first sexual experience, and that will tell you why that is the case. And I've said it for years that people, and I'm telling you, that's why this grooming thing, because again, I'm no social scientist. I have done no studies on any of this, but I'm telling you, the people doctoring these movements and leading them, they've done the research. They know if you can get a kid and their first sexual experience is gay or whatever, one of these, that's going to define their sexual history for the rest of their life or have amazing influence over the rest of their life. And that's why, and they know that kids tend to experiment, and particularly kids that grow up in single parent households where there's a lot less supervision, there's all that experimentation going on. And again, that's why this grooming thing is so important, is because, again, the first time your toes get curled will define your taste for the rest of your life.
I definitely feel that has some type of aspect on it, Jason. My first experience was with a girl. I'm not interested in girls, but I will say that I had an orgasm at 5 years old, and that mattered to me. Going forward, it always mattered to me. When I had my first sexual experience with a guy, it mattered that I had an orgasm, because I knew exactly what was supposed to happen, what to expect, and I liked it from the time I was 5 years old moving forward. So I do think because I had, not a negative experience or something that I felt like was traumatic and it was enjoyable, that's what I always looked for, that enjoyment, and it became something that I wanted, I liked, I craved. So yes, I definitely think that has something to do with it. Your first sexual experience does shape how you move forward and how you view sex moving forward, for sure.
And so I want to connect you to the conversation I was just having with Royce and your reaction to again, there's a reason why me hearing that story from you is why two parents, a lot of supervision and pushing kids to delay their first sexual experience until they can actually handle it. And that's what we don't, as they tear apart American families and there's less supervision, there's going to be more kids having sexual experiences at 5 and 6 years old, and that's going to create some confusion and chaos and the kind of issues that we're having right now with young people.
Yes, and I've told my kids, thankfully, I have 2 over 18 that remain virgins. I told my 17-year-old, no pressure, but you're the last one. If you make it to 18, which I hope I do, I can say none of my children had sex before they were grown. But I've always told them, I don't want to hear I'm heterosexual or I'm bisexual, I'm asexual. You're no sexual because you're not ready for sex, period, of any kind. And that's something that I've pushed on them. Thankfully, I've been able to be very involved. We don't do this whole having people over, closing the doors, spending the night, having your boyfriend come over. It's cute. I've seen parents do that with young children. And to me, you only allow that behavior because you uphold it. You provide a way for them to do it. I don't care that you had a boyfriend at a certain age or I had a boyfriend at a certain age. My children will not have a guy coming over, closing the door or hanging out, spending the night. We're not doing that. It's my house. And I feel like Tina Turner's mother on What's Love Got to Do with It. I'm the only sinner in this house. So I do think that we have to have these families together, and parents have to be a lot more particular and paying attention to what's going on with their kids in the home, definitely.
And so I was told that my watching Killer Joe on Amazon Prime made you go look and see what Netflix was recommending to you. Is that accurate?
Yes, I went to see what the top picks for Shemeka was, and I was confused. They're all over the place. And so I was wondering if you could tell me what, Netflix is saying about me from the ones that was chosen. It was 42. I Am Not Your Negro.
That's the Jackie Robinson. Hold on. That's the Jackie Robinson movie?
Yes, that's the Jackie Robinson movie.
Yep.
I Am Not Your Negro. That's James Baldwin.
Yep.
I had Ricky Gervais, one of his stand-up comedies. Also, something called Love, Death Plus Robots. That looks like some type of science fiction, and I'm not really sure why that was recommended, but obviously, they think it is. And something called Something with Pleasure, which talks about the orgasm gap. So
the principles of pleasure.
Yes, the principles of pleasure. And I feel like I'm missing something in the list.
Four Brothers was the other one.
Yes, and that's the one where they had to avenge their mother's death. She was killed, and the 4 brothers who were adopted came together to get revenge for their mother's death.
Now, are the four brothers, are they black dudes?
They're black and white. Tyrese is one. You know, they were adopted. Yeah. And one of the Wahlberg brothers, he was in there.
To me, my read on that is like they giving you the Black History Month content special from 42 to Four Brothers to I'm Not Your Negro, and then clearly as the principles of pleasure speaks for itself. But again, for me, it's clear as day. I like crime, corruption, and sex, and that's on me. And I got to do something about that. But Shemeka, thank you. Great job. We're going to keep it moving. Let me take care of some more business. What if you could have your health care put back in your own hands instead of being sold to the highest bidder? Politicians, Big Pharma, and the health insurance companies make enormous profits at the expense of your health. That's why Crowd Health works. It's not health insurance. You can see any doctor you want, pay the first $500, and submit any bills from there. The Crowd Health community takes care of the rest. This is a true game changer. You just pay one low monthly total. It's less than $200 a month for most people. Stop paying health insurance companies your hard-earned dollars. Go to joincrowdhealth.com now and experience freedom from health insurance. Right now, you can get your first 6 months for just $99 per month. That's almost 50% off the normal price and a lot less than a high-deductible health care plan. Just go to crowdhealth.com and use the promo code FEARLESS at sign-up. That's joincrowdhealth.com, promo code FEARLESS. Crowd Health is not health insurance. It's a totally different way of paying for health care. Terms and conditions may apply. Hey, you guys have seen the chaos in the financial markets and the job markets. Crowd Health is a great way to take care of your health care needs in this very chaotic time. All right, be a good fearless soldier. Support the sponsors that support us and our point of view. TJ Moe. Nerds. All right, welcome back. Time to roll out to St. Louis, Missouri and visit with the Show Me Kid, TJ Moe. TJ, welcome back to the show. I can't wait to hear your take on all of this. I'm blaming Christians for the gay sexual revolution we're witnessing. They're just mirroring our behavior. What say you?
I go back to pastors. You and I spend a lot of time discussing how pastors have failed us because pastors have failed the people they're shepherding, and the people they're shepherding are the ones out there who are refusing to speak, right? If the person leading you is not going to speak on this, why are you going to speak on it to the sinners? If anybody should be hearing about it, it should be the Christians from the pastors and the leaders. And we refuse to do that. I don't know that there's a cultural rot occurring right now that Christians do not deserve some responsibility for, because it's all written in the book, right? We know what the right answers are. We know what the proper values are. And pastors have spent so much, 60 years avoiding these topics because of the idea of separation in church and state, or their 501c3, or what I think is you can ask Pastor Bobby and Anthony about this, but I think it's a missed perception of Matthew 7, where people say, basically, who am I to judge? Well, you're not the judge. God is. You're just telling them what he said. And so people get this idea that they can hide behind that. And they say, well, if I judge you, then God will judge me, and I don't want God to judge me, so you can do whatever you want. It's a stupid misinterpretation. It's the coward's way out instead of telling the truth. So I think pastors have hidden behind Matthew 7. I think a lot of Christians have hidden behind Matthew 7. That's why they don't vote their values, right? So to me, it is ultimately a pastor's fault. This is what I was telling Allie Beth Stuckey when I was on with her. So many Christians that I know right now, seriously, are watching Allie, they're watching Fearless, they're watching Steve Deace for their shepherding. because these are the Christians actually speaking into the culture and helping them work through life, because their pastor won't do it. I've had probably 10 or 15 messages from a lot of the girls on Allie's show telling me that they left their church for the same reasons I did, and they're dying for somebody to help them work through this culture, and nobody's helping them do it, right? So I think the pastors have failed to speak against this, which allowed the non-Christians and certainly some Christians, but I don't know that Christians were leading the way in the sexual revolution. I think Christians didn't stand in the way, which was the big problem, right? There's an idea in the Bible in Matthew 5:9. It said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." And pastors instead have become peacekeepers. And the idea of peacekeepers is avoiding conflict. Right? It is saying, again, in Matthew 7, you'd be saying, well, I don't want to be judged. I won't stand in the way. We're kind of a seeker's church. Why don't you just, don't tell them what they're doing wrong. Just tell them about the gospel. It's all about the gospel. The gospel obviously is the center. But part of being a peacemaker is initiating conflict, because what happens is Christians never, ever meet anybody where the sins are then. And I think that's very problematic. The strategy is always avoidance, and the avoidance is out of fear. You can't operate out of fear. Eventually that conflict is coming to a head. It's happening right now, right? All of this peacekeeping, it's happening right now as they're trying to take over our children and have drag shows with our kids. That's the issue. Eventually, peacekeepers do have to fight that battle. Peacemakers initiate the battle early and say, here's where we stand. Here's where you stand. Now let's work this out. We will never, ever celebrate this depraved behavior. But you guys can do what you want. We're going to do what we need to over here. We will speak against this because this is what we believe. We've never even had that conversation. It's always a handoff. Maybe someday they'll get saved.
Look, I think that pastors, like a lot of people, and particularly men, want to protect their success, their popularity, or whatever. And so, a pastor can't stand firm on the LGBT issues when he overlooked all the things going on in the heterosexual movement, community, or whatever. And so if you haven't said a word about, hey man, our kids, black and white, all across the country, are listening to a music called hip hop that has sexualized everything and has promoted a level of depravity and violence that is unbelievable. And ministers and men and Christians, in order to protect the popularity, we said nothing. And I'm throwing the we in there, although I've been very consistent about hip hop and what's wrong with it and how polluted it is, and I've been on that for 30 years. But I'm gonna put we in there because I listened to the music. I was highly critical of it, but I certainly listened to it, knew it, went to nightclubs that played it, danced to it, the whole 9 yards. But once you overlook all of that, and once you've mainstreamed all of that, the LGBT guys have a right to say, you done overlooked all of this other stuff. Why are you picking on me? You co-sign out of pop. And so eventually, we're not there yet, because when the rap thing first started, there were people that said something, and then they just gave in and just went along to get along. But eventually, ministers will embrace Lil Nas X and everything he's rapping about, and because that'll be necessary to protect their popularity. And so I certainly think pastors deserve some blame and rebuke here, but just men in general. We haven't protected women and we haven't protected kids, and we're getting the culture we deserve.
Completely agree with your last statement. I will back up a little bit and say there's never a bad time to tell the truth. So the fact that you didn't speak against things before would say you can't speak against it now. I think is nonsense. I think that's just continued cowardice, right? Or justified cowardice. Well, I let these guys get away from it, so let's just let all of the culture get away from us, never speak against it. Our sins are done, and so we're going to sin forever. I don't buy that. And I think, in fact, the pastor of the church that I go to right now, he backed off way back when. He was really kind of similar to the way he is now. And he backed off and tried to turn our church into a seeker's church. And so he got very shallow, we'll say. And so he stopped telling the truth the same way. He stopped really digging deep. He met with some of the mega churches and said, how do you get as many people in the door as possible? My goal is to save souls, not to provide condemnation. He came back and apologized for that several years ago and said, I screwed up so bad. I led all of you astray. That's not the way I'm going to operate. We're going to lose people at the church because they are going to hear that sin is sin and it's unacceptable. And here's how we're going to operate moving forward. And we've lost people at the church. You're familiar with my pastor. He's spoken out on the conservative side against a lot of things, and he had to come back and apologize. And I think that's what good men of courage will do. If you have some integrity, you'll admit a mistake and say, I was asleep at the wheel for 20 years during the sexual revolution. And it happened. It was insidious. I didn't see it coming. It wasn't that big of a deal. I didn't see it absolutely rotting our culture. And now I do. I see kids in drag shows. That's rotting our culture. So just because you missed it on the way up, I don't think precludes you from telling the truth now. So now, too, it's affecting us in bigger ways, right? Obviously, the sexual revolution had major issues. We've talked about from the 60s today and now the fatherlessness issue that we have and how it's providing today. Well, the homosexual and the LGBTQ movement has unbelievable ramifications. First, I mean, just the most obvious one is that we are now already in a fertility replacement rate well below what it needs to be to maintain our population. We're at 1.64. 2.1 is replacement rate. That means without immigration right now, we would be shrinking as a population. That is a big issue, right? So that obviously is, chief aim 1A, why homosexuality is not a good thing. But the HIV epidemic, right? And, on this show, we talk a lot about how things affect black people. I've read before the show, 50% of gay black men, if these rates maintain, 50% of gay black men will develop HIV at some point in their lives. 20% of all gay men right now have it, whether they know it or not. These are all CDC statistics. So there are serious ramifications, and now we're grouping it together with the trans community. Well, the trans community, as we've said ad nauseum here, has a 40% rate of attempting suicide, right? So it's like these ramifications are actually, it is a culture of death. So I would never condone the sexual revolution and what it's led to for the straight sexual revolution. But the cultural rot that this one comes even further is going to wreck everything that we're doing. We need to go back and fix it all. We need to get fathers back in the home. We need to get nuclear families together. We need to have people have responsibility. We need to get off welfare. There's a ton of things that we need to be speaking out against. It is just that now we're attacking children along with it, and the ramifications that come along with this are so in your face you cannot ignore them.
I just want to add this little touch of the other thing that silences a lot of believers is their own sin. And because the other side, progressives, the left, the LGBT crowd, love to use your sin to silence you. And that's why I operate the way that I do, very transparently, and say, yeah, that was me at that strip club in 2010. Yep, that was, I used to go to Las Vegas every other weekend and blah, blah, blah. And because the reason I'm a Christian is because my nature is sinful. There is no man, woman, child, or whatever that has not sinned. So I confess them all, but most people don't want to be outspoken on these issues. And for me, it's a bit easier because, again, I'm not married. And so I see a lot of men doing the calculus, like if I'm really honest and approach things the way Whitlock does, what's my wife gonna think? if I, cop to the mistakes I used to make. But again, that's why you and your wife need to be in the church, because you've been made anew, and she, anyway, you got to get her on board. She's got to be right there with you. And it's no different. Like last week we had Matt Walsh on, and his wife is right in the fight with him. That's why she participated in that What is a Woman deal, and they're in it together. And that's the way we're gonna have to be. We're gonna have to live transparently, and we gotta talk about our mistakes. And that's why I constantly talk about my mistakes and the stupid things I used to think, and just the ramifications, what it's cost me. And sitting here at 55 and thinking all the stupid things I used to think, and thinking that being promiscuous and different women and all this stuff was more valuable than being married and committed to one. It's all craziness that has, damaged my life, and that I like to talk about it because I don't want other people to make that mistake. I want them to know a lot earlier than age 50 that you need to be approaching things in a different way. But TJ, I know you had a point you wanted to make about how TV and entertainment are our new Bible. Explain that.
That wasn't it so much as to say I think we have valued freedom over godliness at this point. And America is, to me, look, we're obsessed with freedom, rightfully so, right? This is why, at least the way it used to be, July 4th was just this massive celebration, because freedom allows you to get some things done. But what comes with freedom is responsibility, or your freedom is going to be gone in short order. So for me, that is why, it's more holistic than what you're talking about. You came into it and said, look, this idea of the heterosexual, you mentioned, I think it was Paris Hilton in the Carl Jr. commercials way back when. You're like, what's that got to do with the cheeseburger? That has moved us to here. It is the celebration of sexual immorality. But I think even what's unlocked all of this ideas, so we have our original sins as Americans, right? And we'll say that's slavery, that was not allowing women to vote and be equals, right? We've spent a lot of our time as a country trying to sort through those and right those wrongs. So freed the slaves, women's suffrage, could vote, all that stuff was good. And we have lost our discernment for figuring out where the moral behavior is. That freedom is good so long as you are only utilizing the freedom to have your moral behavior. And we've decided that all freedom should be celebrated. Well, freedom's good. Celebrate freedom. You have the freedom to go out there and be as crazy as you want. And you do. But we should not be celebrating that. We certainly shouldn't be celebrating it when it happens with our kids at the parade in the video that you showed. You shouldn't be bringing your own kids. You should be locked up if you bring your kids to a drag show parade like we just saw. So that my general idea is America is so obsessed with freedom that we've lost all discernment. Two things. We either lost all discernment and just said freedom's freedom, it's good, let's celebrate no matter what, which is largely anarchy. And the second thing is the people who do have that discernment have been scared so far into a corner of being called bigots that they're afraid they're going to lose everything and it's no good. So I am Mr. Freedom. I have American flags up in my house. There's nobody that supports our police and soldiers and such more than I do. But I'm just telling you, as you pointed out, I think it was it Adams that said this Constitution cannot be utilized by anybody except for those who are a religious moral group, and we are far past that. And that to me is our largest problem in our culture today.
TJ, we're going to end on that note. I'm going to run out to Idaho and bring in Dave Shannon to top this show off. We'll see what the Idaho potato has to say. All right, welcome back. Time to bring in Dave Shannon, Chocolate Knox. Chocolate Knox, you're the perfect man to bat cleanup today. I know you'll have something original to say and something profound. I want to start here with the Postmates commercial. and the bottom-friendly Postmates commercial, and I think it's grotesque. It's disgusting and disturbing. But again, I do think like we have said sex sells, and we've used sex to sell everything. So I don't know if we should be shocked that the LGBT crowd is using sex to sell its movement. We did it with Carl's Jr., we did it with Sports Illustrated. Again, I think we created this. It's been inevitable that we would land here because heterosexuals started this.
Jason, there's a few things that you hit on, first of all, in your article and your opening monologue that are profound. And that statement right there is one of them. One of the things that we've forgotten is that the culture is coming from us. We've created this process, this domino effect. We've planted the seeds of the tree that exists right now in the cultures, particularly the one of the LGBTQ. That's seeds that we've planted from our own. You know, in Romans, your whole article was like a rollout of Romans just working its way through understanding the situation. Inside of Romans, it deals with first chapter, this gratuitous type of culture that comes when you deny Christ and when you deny God and the creator who made you, you start going insane. And when you start going insane, the culture falls apart. You lose your natural desires. What sanity looks like between a man and a woman falls apart. Women start having very unnatural desires to do things that are unseemly, and so do men. And so Romans 1 rolls out what the insanity of rejecting God looks like in culture. But then when it gets to the second chapter, Jason, it says, and now you who say you should not commit adultery, do you commit adultery? You who say you shouldn't steal, do you steal? It flips the whole thing on the head and says the reason that you have what you have right now with this denial of sanity is because you have forgotten the moral obligation and consistency with the God that you serve. So you have a massive form of hypocrisy that's coming from you that have planted the seeds of this culture. And so, yeah, when you look at it, we are the ones to blame for this. We're the ones who are responsible for what we're getting. And until we repent of this, we're going to have a lot more of it. Jason, there's something else that really troubled me while I was watching the video clips that you posted, that you showed earlier in the show. What really hit me was the boldness that they have to proclaim such as insanity. I mean, they are bold with this. Even the commercial just now, they're not asking the question if it's too much. They're not asking the question that if they proclaim their God, I wonder if the culture will leave us. They're not wondering at all if they are shoving it down our throats. They are fine with proclaiming their insanity. And we are the ones that are acting like cowards right now. We're the ones saying, well, we don't want to start with Jesus because if we start with Jesus, then they might say, oh, you believe in the sky daddy. Do you think they care at all about whether or not we are concerned about their false God? They are just proclaiming it, and they're putting it into everything, and we are eating it up. And we're sitting here having arguments about whether or not we should be leading with Jesus. That's insane.
Okay, Dave, here's where I'm going to defend them. I have to look at my own insanity because at no point in my life have I ever denied being a Christian. You can go find articles I wrote at the Ann Arbor News, at the Kansas City Star years ago, where I talked about my relationship with my grandmother and, you know, how her Christian faith influenced me. And so I've never denied being a Christian. And so I have to deal with the fact that I proclaim being a Christian, but you can find all kinds of writings and actions and celebration of me and promiscuity and hanging out in strip clubs and all kinds of debauchery. And so as insane as those people looked on that video, that's how insane I looked claiming Christ and being very comfortable living a very debaucherous lifestyle. So that's why I look at them and go, oh my God, they're holding up a mirror. This is as crazy as I looked.
Absolutely. That's exactly the point of Romans 2. You have what you have in the culture because of how you have been acting. So we planted those seeds. And so there's no doubt that we need to repent of that. So I'm totally agreeing with you on that point. I'm just saying that we aren't being nearly as bold as you are to call it out in the same way. Jason, we have, and this is just some of the seeds that I want to point to that we've planted to get what we have right now in Pride Parade or in, transgender or drag queen story hour. I have friends, Jason, that I have talked to in the middle of the conversation. They're just talking like this is normal. We're just having a normal conversation. And they have said, and so me and my wife and my kids were out at Hooters. And I'm like, what? You took not just your kids, but you took your wife to Hooters too? And y'all sat there and had a meal with the girl that got the booty shorts on and the breast all out? Never mind the fact that the place was called Hooters on the front of it. I don't even know why you were in there. So what type of depravity do you have to have going on in here to be able to take your wife and your children to a depraved restaurant to have food? And then somehow we think that you don't get drag queen story hour and then you're not going to take your kids to that? Immorality begets even a worse form of immorality. If you're willing to take your kids and your wife to Hooters, then you have a hard time as far as not being a hypocrite of why you can't take your kids to drag queen story hour. You've already defined that you don't have a high standard of morality. What's the difference between this failure of morality into that failure of morality? And so I completely agree with you in the sense that we have failed in our objective biblical standard of morality to live it up. And so we've been hypocrites, and that form of hypocrisy has planted the very seeds that we have right now. My point is that we need to have the kind of boldness to say we need to repent. We need to call out to God and say, God, we were wrong. We missed it. My sinful attitude and my sinful false understanding of objective truth and reality and not seeing it in myself has led to a failure in the culture. And Lord, I'm asking you to forgive me. And in that moment, repent to your family. Say, we're not doing this anymore. We're not letting certain shows in our home to disciple and teach us and to be our new foundation of morality so that we quote them all the time. We're not letting that in our home. What we're going to do now is we're going to have Bible time in our home. We're going to learn about Jesus. We're going to quote his words so that we talk like him and that we don't talk like the new hot top 10 shows on Netflix that are preaching pornography and preaching homosexuality. Right. So, I mean, it was funny when you guys were talking about pastors. I was thinking about you and TJ Moe were talking about pastors. I was thinking the new pastors of the culture are Netflix and Hulu and Disney. And we've invited them into our house far more than we've invited the word of God into our house. And that's why we sound like them. That's why we sound like the world with just a little Jesus sprinkled on top. We need to be able to quote Jesus more than we quote Pac.
And that is a brilliant point you made that in the previous segment I attributed to TJ Moe, but it was actually in my notes that was the point you wanted to make, that we basically have a new Bible and it's the television shows and it is, I've tried to explain to people for years, like the power of music and why I've been so critical of hip hop. And again, I admit that I listen to it and have listened to it. I listen to it a lot less of it now, but kids can recite virtually every lyric of some song, some rap song, some Cardi B or Lil Nas or Jay-Z or whomever, and much of what they're quoting and can recite is debaucherous, immoral, depraved, and it used to be the way, and I can remember when I was a kid, from going to so much church and going to vacation Bible school, I used to be able to rattle off biblical verses and biblical songs and blah, blah. And now we've got a generation of kids that again, it's hip hop, it's rap lyrics, and it's not a mistake that all of that music is laced with such negative messaging. The people promoting that music, and I'm not, the rappers included, but I'm talking about the people, the executives and all that, they know exactly what they're doing and what they're doing to the human mind and and this again, why I sit back and say, we've been silent on all of this as our kids have been programmed for the debauchery we see at Gay Pride Month. That programming actually started with Snoop and Dre and rap music. And again, there's like aspects of this that we don't want to talk about as black people, but this whole gay thing is running wild in our community. It's a problem everywhere. But my God, in our community where, 75% of our kids grow up in single parent homes, and so they're not even in the right environment for development. The gay thing is just running wild, and we don't see the whole connections that when Snoop Dogg is rapping about, and I'm gonna say what he's rapped about, because I can quote the lyrics, something about, I'm doing something with my on your tonsils, and he's talking about his in a man's mouth, and then all the other sexual depravity that just goes along with that whole prison culture that has been promoted through rap music. We've said nothing. We've actually supported these guys, been friends with these guys, and we're wondering why we're in the shape we're in now.
Jason, it's been interesting to watch everybody be so turned up over the grooming of our kids in government schools. I think they have a right to be upset about that. But we've forgotten that the first groomers were us. We've been grooming our kids. And the fact that they have an appetite for this stuff shows the type of things that we've been grooming them for. And we've been groomed ourselves and we haven't been paying attention to it. We've been groomed to embrace this certain thing, and that's why we're where we're at. And so how did our kids get into environments and places where they are embracing this type of groomification? Oh, because we've created appetite for it in one way or another, and we haven't been paying attention because we have it ourselves. We've taken music for granted in so many ways. A lot of people can play the piano. Some people can play the saxophone. Even more people can play drums and rhythmic instruments, Jason. But everybody is born to sing. Everybody has an instrument that they're born with because God has designed them that way. And so music is something that is just not out there. It's a part of a way that we communicate. It's inside of us. We are made with the words of God, and we have that kind of music built into it. So when we hear music, it gets inside of us in a way that nothing else does. The same way poetry does. It moves us, and we don't forget how we feel and the emotion that it gives to us. And so there's whatever you're singing, whatever you're putting in, that's the thing that's molding and making you and grooming you. And whether or not you know it, it's having an effect. And we don't think about it that way. We just think, oh, I just want to be aimlessly listening to something or have a... No. It's designed, the way God has made the world, it's designed to disciple you, to make you a certain type of person. So when you're listening to music, when you're watching TV shows, you need to ask yourself, what type of person is this thing designed to make me? And then you look at it, I'm going to tell you who knows. Amazon knows. Netflix knows. They know what type of shows these things are designed to do. That's why they're making more of it. This is like, oh, Knox likes to watch shows like this. Hey, 50 million more on another show like this. Y'all make a show series like this. Knox is going to watch it, and all the other Christians are going to watch it too. It's okay that it has a little porn. They don't mind that, right? They know. They understand this grooming far more than we do. And grooming is an escapable process. We're going to be groomed. The question is, what are we going to be groomed by? Secularism, homosexuality, fruitlessness, or are we going to be groomed by God's word and God's standard? Which is why I was saying my point earlier, Jason. If we don't lead with that, then we're not the ones grooming the culture.
Knox, I'm going to let you go. We're going to end this show. You did exactly what I wanted you to do. You put an exclamation point on our conversation. Outstanding job. Thank you. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I think that I hear tomorrow We're gonna get a little freedom, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Freedom, looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came in like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation, we all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on the corner, never been alone, I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back, we are receiving, all deceiving, we all wanna be free. We want freedom. I wanna be, I just want